This edition of the Ridley Report is brought to you by HomelandStupidity.us.
Well, I'm standing here with Emily O'Neill from New Hampshire, who I guess may be known in the future as Emmy O'Neill, because you're still sort of developing, I guess what you might call a media presence or a stage presence. You're thinking about using a pen name. Anyway, that really wasn't what I want to talk about initially. I want to talk about the fact that I guess you're a former Romney person, a Romney volunteer who worked pretty heavily for Romney, and you've now defected to the Ron Paul camp. Tell me a little bit about that.
Right, that's correct.
Even though, I mean, technically he's not running, but he still represents, you know...
Right, represents the liberty movement. Well, what happened was that I was really in favor of the Republican movement and the conservatives and traditional values. And so I was volunteering for Mitt Romney, and I was making phone calls and going door to door and going to different events. I even participated in a 4th of July parade. And after a while, I started to realize that Romney was sort of fitting into this right-left dichotomy that wasn't real. And so I started to realize that it wasn't about left politics versus right politics, and it was more about principles. And so Congressman Ron Paul actually came to the University of New Hampshire, and there were some really dedicated student activists that were a part of the Ron Paul camp at school. And once I saw Ron Paul in my school, I started to really rethink my political beliefs, and then once I got to the root of the principles and what I really thought politically, then I started to change a lot of my political leanings, and I realized that Romney was more for big government, and he wasn't for small government that he claimed that he advocated for. And so then that's when I started to realize that Congressman Ron Paul stood for small government, and he stood up for the Constitution, and that's really what I was interested in. And so then that's when I started to learn more about him, and I started to become friends with the student activists. And once I became friends with them, then the rest is history. Then I started doing my own research, and after that I started attending more libertarian type events and realizing that I wasn't a stranger to the libertarian cause, that a lot of my beliefs actually fell right in line with libertarian ones. So.
And you had to make changes, not just in the sense that you were with you can say where you are. I'm just backing up for a second. You can the Ron Paul campaign was one change for you from the Romney campaign. Okay, sorry for the interruption there. I had to switch tapes, switch cameras actually. Anyway, what would you say? It was the students that ended up changing your mind. But did you have, what was it about their, did the students change, or did Ron Paul himself change it? What was the biggest factor?
Well, I remember when Ron Paul came into school and the student activists were handing out information about him, I remember hearing from my Republican friends that Ron Paul was a very liberal candidate, and so it was talking to the activists and then attending the event and hearing right from Ron Paul's mouth that he was for small government and for individual liberty. I thought, well, how is he liberal and for big government? So then it was then that I became curious about Ron Paul, and then I started talking to the activists who really knew a lot about the movement already.
Right. So you're planning on moving to Washington to go to the root of the problem from New Hampshire, and you said you kind of want to blaze your own trail. You tell me a little bit about what exactly you think you might want to do.
Well, I think that since the libertarian cause really embraces the idea of individuality, I think I consider myself to be more of a leader rather than a follower. And so what I'm thinking about doing is starting a website, having a blog series, and basically talking about my change from being a big party Republican to someone who is an independent thinker, someone who is a champion for the libertarian cause. And so I want to tell other people about this switch, because other people can make the switch too. All it takes is just that freedom to not think within the boundaries of this fictitious political discourse, and really just kind of open your mind up. And so I think that if other people were to hear my message, that they would also think about leaving the Democratic cause, the Republican cause, and look past mainstream politics.
When you look at the way that the blogosphere operates right now, or the progress that YouTube has made and competing with the relatively normal media, do you have any kind of sense of what you think the next step might be? I mean, what do you think might be the future for independent media and folks like you who go into it pretty much by themselves to be one-person media? What do you think the future of that one-person media?
Well, I think that eventually people are going to start subscribing to libertarian type media, and I know that right now Fox Business Channel has a show now, Freedom Watch. It's a libertarian show. Who would have thought that Fox, a big time Republican channel, that advocates for bigger government, has a libertarian show? So it's really up to libertarians to kind of try to get themselves into the mainstream media and have their voice heard. As for individuals, I think having video series is probably the best way to go about it, because people can be pretty impatient, and when people are first learning about the libertarian cause, they want something that's easy to explain. I think that by seeing videos, they're more likely to be receptive to the message.
All right, so it looks like Ron Paul has a new supporter operating independently, kind of like I do. I mean, I can't help but admire all this stuff I'm doing. So, whether you're imitating me or not, it's still flattering. And so I wish you best of luck with your channel out there. If you get overwhelmed in D.C., you got a little bit of freedom to come back to here. We'll try to keep it warm for you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Have you ever wished you could just grab the president's attention for a few seconds and tell him what's wrong with Washington? Well, there is one free stater who's apparently already done it. Michael Hampton over at homelandstupidity.us. Hampton reports that a summary of at least one of his articles ended up in the president's daily news briefing. So, why do powerful Americans pay attention to homelandstupidity.us? Well, it's because Michael Hampton is a great whistleblower. Drop by homelandstupidity.us and see for yourself what the fuss is all about. homelandstupidity.us